Chapter 666. The Middle Stage of the Berserker Soul Realm. The world roared. The rainbows filled even more of the sky, causing the 7 colors to be even more abundant, up to the point they were endless. The distortions in the sky started showing even more signs of tearing, as if that one sentence from Su Ming had caused the universe to tremble. With the power in the initial stage of the Berserker Soul Realm, Su Ming could not win against the golden-robed Di Qian, but his path towards the Berserker Soul Realm had just started. If he could not win against Di Qian in the initial stage of the Berserker Soul Realm, then he would rush to the middle stage. Almost at the instant the changes in the sky became even more intense, a great wave of power immediately spread out and swept outwards from Su Ming's body. In the blink of an eye, it looked as if it had filled up the entire world, causing everything in it to look as if they had slowed to the point of becoming still. The white sun from that golden-robed Di Qian rose into the sky, continuing to grow bigger. It was covered by a great mass of power, and while it did not stop, it still slowed down. That vast mass of power was the power of the world. It was also the law of the world of berserkers that looked as if it was using all of the world's kismet and everything else to suppress this place. Su Ming was in midair, and he still had yet to open his eyes. He was not intentionally increasing his level of cultivation. Instead, when he had broken through Bone's sacrifice realm and reached the initial stage in the Berserker Soul Realm earlier, he had a feeling, and that was, when his statue of the god of berserkers was eventually completed, he would arrive at a state which he had never reached before. This feeling was incredibly strong. When he was fighting against Di Qian, he had even felt that he could become stronger. My statue is still incomplete. It only has one right arm, it still lacks. Su Ming mumbled, and his eyes flew open. Immediately, the light of burning flames appeared in his eyes. That light was crimson red, and it was the blood moon. The burning blood moon was reminiscent to the burning of blood, resulting in Su Ming looking even more bizarre in midair. He lifted his left hand and formed half a circle above his head. His right hand rose up at the same time and touched his left hand to form a complete circle. There was red light shining within the circle, and for all those who could see it, it was as if Su Ming's arms had turned into a blood-red full moon. Moonlight shone in all directions, causing the entire land to turn instantly red. The moon during my youth appeared red like blood due to fire. Su Ming's voice reverberated in the world, and despite him moving his arms away from each other, the blood moon he had formed did not disappear. Instead, it looked as if it had gained physical form and charged into the sky. Once it flew up, it absorbed all the endless power from the world, making it all surge madly towards it. At this moment, the blood moon looked like a real moon, and its existence above Su Ming exuded a presence that caused the hearts of all those who saw it to tremble in shock. When Jian saw this in the distance, there was no longer any hesitation on his face. Instead, his expression turned into that of dead silence. He looked at the blood moon quietly, then at Su Ming, and finally at the golden-robed Di Qian, who was suppressed by the power of the entire world of berserkers. Even if Di Qian had executed that extremely powerful saw to the white sky, he was still suppressed by the power of the world. All the people in the world had become outsiders. Only Su Ming remained as a matchless existence in the place, becoming the sole focus of everyone's eyes in the area. The appearance of the blood moon had caused loud rumbling sounds to come from the distorting and shredding sky. Those sounds were each louder than the last, eventually reaching a volume that was deafening to the ears, making it sound as if the entire world was howling. There was once a person who said something to me as we stood in the midst of snow. She said, "If we continue walking in this snow, can we walk until our hair turns white?" Many years later, I still remember that scene, which seemed so real, but at the same time was like an illusion. But it doesn't matter whether it is real or fake, the snow on that day has now turned into white hair in my memories, Su Ming mumbled softly. Grief tinted with nostalgia appeared in his eyes. The images of 2 people moving through the snow gradually appeared before his vision, and as they continued walking, their figures were slowly concealed by the snow before his eyes. It caused everything that Su Ming saw to turn into endless snow that covered the sky, the earth, and all of his memories, causing him to be unable to find the 2 figures. All he could remember was the snow and the locks of hair that had seemed to turn white. A sigh came from Su Ming's grieving heart, turning into waves of ripples as it echoed. At some point in time, his hair gradually turned white, and that shade of white was due to snow. Snowflakes quietly appeared in the distorting sky and floated down to the ground. They fell on Su Ming's body and his hair, making it look as if his hair had truly turned white. The snow slowly floated down without any wind. It covered the entire area around Su Ming and concealed the gazes of the tens of thousands of immortals. Slowly, the snow fell even harder in the vast world. The blood moon was in the sky, and snow was falling down to the ground. As that scene took form and fused together with Su Ming as he stood in the snow, it turned into an incredibly beautiful picture. However, there was a forlorn incompleteness within this beauty. A depressing sensation rose within the hearts of all those who saw this, causing the entire area to fall silent. Only the people's focused gazes remained unchanged. The blood moon is my soul, and the memories in the snow are my spirit. The blood moon represents my persistence during my youth. The nostalgia toward the snow is my reluctance to part with my past. Today, Dark Mountain, Ninth Summit, and Destiny have become the first soul of my berserker soul and turned into the right arm for my statue of the god of berserkers. Now I will use the blood moon and my memories in the snow to form the left arm for my statue. Su Ming lifted his head. At the instant he looked towards the sky, the roars from the distortions turned more shocking, as if there were some shocking changes that were unfolding madly within the cracks. The blood moon and snow fused swiftly above Su Ming during that instant, and as they did so, the power of the world merged into one with a bang. The snow and blood moon were about to fuse perfectly together. The roars from the distorting sky became even stronger, as if the left arm of Su Ming's statue was about to appear, just as he had said. A glint suddenly appeared in Su Ming's eyes. The right arm of my statue contains Dark Mountain and Ninth Summit, allowing it to obtain the power of mountains, which can cause the world to crumble. It also possesses Destiny's power, allowing it to turn back time. This reversal of time is the skill contained within the right arm of my statue, and the mountains are the spells contained within it as well. This is what is known as art. It is the same for my statue's left arm. The blood moon and floating snow allows my statue's left arm to contain bloodlust and the power to shred. This is its ability, but now it lacks spirit. I will fuse my origin vessel, the origin lightning, into the blood moon and floating snow, turning them into the divine ability for my statue's left arm. Su Ming's eyes sparkled, and lightning sparks swiftly appeared within his body. This lightning was not formed by the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning runic symbols but born straight from his body. When he finished speaking, a 9-holed cauldron-shaped item surrounded by lightning flew out swiftly from his mouth and charged into the sky. As it closed in on the blood moon and floating snow, an infinite amount of lightning erupted explosively. As those bolts of lightning roared, all 9 holes within the cauldron were filled in an instant, turning into piercing light that resulted in no one being able to see, but a deep wave of shock still burst forth from their minds. Divine Will's lightning. Jian's eyes went wide, and he stared fixedly at the 9-holed cauldron. His breathing instantly quickened. At the same time, some of the tens of thousands of immortals on the ground immediately recognized this lightning's name, and an uproar rose among them in the midst of their shock. This is Divine Will's lightning. It is said that this is the 3rd type of lightning heavenly judgment. It barely exists in the world, and there are few who can control it. This Su Ming, not only is he powerful, he can also control Divine Will's lightning. No wonder he could draw Hidden Dragon Sect's lightning runic symbol. Blinding bolts of lightning erupted from Su Ming's origin vessel in the sky, and during that instant, it fused with the blood moon and the floating snow. Once that happened, an arm that was surrounded by an endless amount of lightning sparks and filled with a bloodthirsty, destructive air swiftly appeared before everyone's eyes. At the instant it came to be, it was as if some established law had been changed within the world of berserkers. An endless amount of lightning bolts gathered toward this place from all directions. The whole eastern wastelands, all the other continents, and the entire world of berserkers. Those bolts of lightning replaced the entire sky, causing it to turn into a gigantic pool of lightning, and right in the center of it was the statue's left arm, which had been formed once all the elements fused together. The left arm controlled the lightning in the world, and an illusory blood moon also appeared among them. That moon was the real moon in the world of berserkers, but during that instant it shattered. It was as if the moon did not dare show its face before the left arm of Su Ming's statue. When it shattered and gradually dissipated, above the eastern wastelands, South Morning, alliance of the western region, northern province, and the endless Dead Sea. It started snowing. Snow floated down in the wind and covered the entire sky and earth in the world of berserkers, causing it to instantly turn into a world of snow. What other anomaly in the world could be more shocking than the sight of the entire world of berserkers snowing because of Su Ming? What other anomaly in the world could be more unbelievable than the sight of the berserkers' sky being covered by lightning? The world roared. At the instant the left arm of Su Ming's statue of the god of berserkers appeared and charged towards him to fuse with his left arm, the immortals saw the distorting sky among the snow and lightning collapsing with a bang. A gigantic statue's left arm stretched out from the sky with a presence that could make all the people's hearts crumble, bringing with it lightning, bloodlust, and a chill that could tear apart everything. Su Ming's divine ability was contained in this left arm, and his art was in the right arm. These two gigantic statues' arms came into contact with each other in the sky, and each formed a seal. Su Ming stood on the two fingers that were lifted up on the statue's left hand once it finished forming the seal. His long hair floated in the air, and his face alternated between being brilliantly illuminated and sinking into darkness as the bolts of lightning flashed around him. By that time, the brilliant light and calmness within his eyes had turned into a picture of eternal pillousness. Chapter 667. The God of Berserker's Oath in his song. When the statue's left arm appeared, all of Su Ming's power burst out from his body with a bang. This explosion was out of his control, and it continued like water gushing out of a well, causing loud booming sounds to travel out of his body while also making his cultivation base instantly reach the peak of the initial stage of the Berserker Soul Realm. At that moment, the explosions within his cultivation base paused for a moment. However, even if it did stop, it only stopped for an instant before a loud bang rang into the air, and the explosions broke through the initial stage of the Berserker Soul Realm, causing Su Ming to lift his head and let out a long roar. As he cried out, he became a powerful berserker in the middle stage of the Berserker Soul Realm. Those who had reached this stage could gather even more power from the world at a faster rate. In fact, they could also touch upon the laws of the world slightly, allowing them to use the laws within the world of berserkers. If it had been any other berserker in the middle stage of the Berserker Soul Realm, then perhaps they would not be unmatched, but it was completely different for Su Ming. To him, being in the middle stage of the Berserker Soul Realm was already enough to bring out the full potential of his powerful physical body and the different powers contained within the left and right arms of his statue of the god of berserkers. As Su Ming's cultivation base erupted, the seal placed within his mind broke down even more. By the looks of it, it was about to crumble at any moment. However, there was still a hint of power whose origins were unknown coming forth to increase the strength of that seal, trying to prevent Su Ming from breaking the seal on his memories fully. When Su Ming was still in the initial stage of the Berserker Soul Realm, he had already sensed this, but he could see only brief signs of this external force within him. However, when he reached the middle stage of the Berserker Soul Realm and the seal broke even more, he swiftly engaged this external force in an invisible fight. Su Ming could also vaguely feel that this external force did not come from the land of berserkers, but from somewhere above, beyond the sky, from the galaxy that belonged to the immortals. In fact, Su Ming had a strong feeling that if his power could increase a little further, then he could find the source of this external force using it as his lead, and he would see just who was sealing his memories. Even if Su Ming already had an answer, he still wanted to see Di Qian's real self, who would surely be residing within the world of immortals, since he could only send his clones to the land of berserkers. It was also during that instant that Xian finally made his decision. He temporarily gave up on the fight over the ownership for Eastern Wasteland's tower, because he had to stop Su Ming. Even if this meant that he was helping Di Qian, Xian would still do it, because he was, in the end, also an immortal. It was impossible for him to just watch Su Ming continue becoming stronger. This sort of result was something he could not accept. All of this is Di Qian's doing. I might not know his plans, but clearly, they failed. Instead he made destiny become this way. Xian's expression turned dark. He did not immediately attack, but instead chose to keep his gaze on Su Ming and wait for his chance. And this statue? This isn't a statue of the god of berserkers anymore. I've been researching the berserkers for many years, and I've never heard of any berserker having this sort of statue appear when they reach Berserker Soul Realm. Usually, once they reach Berserker Soul Realm, the complete form of their statues would manifest in one go, but this Su Ming still didn't manifest his full statue of the god of berserkers despite merging his soul twice. He could only manage to make 2 arms appear. If we just let him continue like this, then once this unprecedented statue of the god of berserkers manifested completely, just how strong would it be? Based on evil sex investigations, nothing this strange had occurred when the third god of berserkers inherited the first god of berserkers will either, and it was the same for the second god of berserkers. We don't know whether this happened for the first god of berserkers, but Jian's pupils suddenly shrank and his heart instantly started racing in his chest. He lifted his head swiftly and stared fixedly at the arms that belonged to Su Ming's statue. His face instantly turned pale. Sovereign Kai made a prediction in the past. The first god of berserkers' inheritance would end once he passed it to the third, and there would no longer be a fourth god of berserkers who would inherit the first god of berserkers' will. There is no possibility of error for this. Yet if there's someone who won't inherit the first god of berserkers will but manages to craft a path that is similar to the first's with his own strength and becomes a new god of berserkers, then this will not be within Sovereign Kai's predictions. He gathered the world of berserkers Kismet on himself, and his berserker soul brought out an anomaly in the world. Snow started falling on the entire land of berserkers, and lightning replaced the sky. All of these things are telling openly that this Su Ming is about to become the fourth god of berserkers. Jian's pupils shrank even more, and his expression also started changing rapidly. In the end, the killing intent within his heart increased several thousand times. The immortals could absolutely not allow any god of berserkers to appear among the berserkers once again. It was especially so when it was one who would not inherit the first's will but would be like the first and become the god of berserkers on his own, and who had even obtained the entire world of berserkers Kismet on himself while bringing forth such a change in the world. However, at the instant Jian made this decision in his heart, Su Ming, as he stood on his statue of the god of berserkers' left hand while his chi continued rising to reach the middle stage of the berserker soul realm, lowered his head and looked towards Di Qian. He then lifted his right hand and swung it outwards, and, immediately, the world roared. All appearances of things having slowed down vanished at that instant, and the pressure in the world also dissipated. Everything returned to normal, and Su Ming took a step forward. It was also at that moment that the golden-robed Di Qian let out a roar that reverberated in the air. The true soar to the white sky that he had activated by offering up his body had turned into a white sun, and with a loud bang, it charged towards Su Ming. The white sun contained an indescribably vast power and a presence that could wipe away everything within the world. Hong Luo had been unable to match up to this art in the past, and Su Ming had also been injured gravely because of this art several years ago. In the end, he was brought away by someone while he was at death's door. However, it did not mean that there was no way to break this art. Su Ming still remembered that by using the power from the god of berserkers, not only had he managed to break this art the first time he had fought against Di Qian, but he had also destroyed one of Di Qian's clones. He had managed to do it in the past. Even though he had relied on the power of the god of berserkers to do so, with his current abilities, he might be able to do this again even without the assistance. Su Ming sucked in a deep breath. An eye-catching glare appeared in his eyes and he lifted his right hand to swing it against the incoming white sun. Immediately, the right arm of his statue rose up, and as it formed a seal, it charged towards the white sun. The right arm contained the 9th summit and Dark Mountain, and had been formed after these two mountains overlapped, resulting in that right arm having the power to destroy the sky and earth. With a vast amount of pressure spreading out from within it, it charged forward, and since it also contained Destiny's art to reverse time, it caused the space where it passed to look as if it was withering away. As wrinkles appeared in space, inch by inch, it looked as if it had been struck by more than just one fist. Instead, it looked as if there had been another fist that had struck space a breath ago, and another one 2 breaths ago. Even if the immortals tried to track down the start of this tunnel of time, none of them would be able to know just how many punches were contained within this reversal of time. They would only be able to see an endless amount of after-images, which made it look as if there were worlds being born and destroyed around it. It was as if everything had happened within an instant. When the fist closed in on the sun, the world lost its color. The right arm looked as if it had controlled the reversal of time to get closer to the white sun with a bang. Su Ming lifted his left hand at the same time and pointed towards the white sun. With it, the left hand of his statue swayed before immediately turning crimson red, the color of the blood moon. An endless amount of snow also appeared around it, and a power that thirsted for blood as well as aimed to tear apart everything erupted. 9 divine will's lightnings appeared on the statue's left arm. With a roar, they surrounded the entire area, as if having spread out through space and shattered the universe. With that indescribable presence, the left arm charged towards the white sun with its earth-shaking divine ability. The statue's arms contained Su Ming's will, along with his art and spirit. As these two gathered together, they turned into a realm that even Su Ming did not know about. That was Tao. This is Tao. He actually mastered Tao. Jian sucked in a sharp breath. He should not be doing this with his status, but at that moment, he could not help but let out a cry of surprise. Once he voiced those words, the tens of thousands of immortals in the area found their jaws falling slack out of shock as their minds filled with absent-mindedness and confusion. The powerful warriors who were in ascendance, like Shandong, had even widened their eyes as they looked at Su Ming. That was indeed Tao. It was the personal Tao that was rare even among the immortals. Tao! Qian Lanmeng's knees went weak as she stood among the crowd. She bit her bottom lip as she stared silently at Su Ming in the sky. Her heart was empty, and her face was rife with anguish. She could still remember vaguely that there had been a faint possibility of a future between her and Su Ming in the past, but as time passed by and she took that particular action in the world of Nine Yin, that possibility had been cut off. Over the years, she had originally thought that she would forget about the past, but at the moment she saw Su Ming on the battlefield, tears still flowed down her eyes. He doesn't suit you. These words were spoken with a sigh from beside Qian Lanmeng. They belonged to her older sister. Qian Lan knew a shocking roar covered the sister's words. The 2 arms from Su Ming's statue of the god of berserkers crashed into the white sun at that moment, causing a loud bang to erupt into the air, one that made most of the tens of thousands of immortals cough up blood. Numerous immortals endured the intense pain in their bodies with gritted teeth and looked towards Su Ming so that they could see his Tao, as well as the end of the battle. They saw Su Ming closing his eyes in midair in the midst of that loud sound, and with his lifted right hand, he looked like an artist sinking into a trance before he drew the first stroke of his painting. That one stroke was for berserker obliteration. Su Ming had executed this art many times in his life, but he had never used it under such circumstances, when he had been acknowledged by the land of berserkers, had the world's kismet on his body, and with the status of the 4th god of berserkers. This was the first time he executed the god of berserkers song with berserker obliteration like this. The place where I was born still did things according to the laws of the universe. When I was born, the berserkers had weakened. If the heavens are heartless, then we will all be separated. The earth was heartless, and it made my dark mountain die. If the heavens don't have eyes, then I will step on it and watch myself seal the heavens. The world's kismet is upon me, and I will surely kill Dai Qian with my own hands. If the deities don't have souls, then I swear I will slaughter the deities and become the emperor. My berserker's soul has formed, and I will dye the immortals sky red with millions of their lives throughout my life. This berserker obliteration was sung by Su Ming, placing his whole life within it, and with this will, why should he not destroy all the immortals? Chapter 668. Jian Attacks. That one stroke was the song for berserker obliteration, but even as it was sung, it could never capture all the emotions contained in the berserker's tears. Su Ming closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he looked as if he was holding onto a brush in his right hand. It was still lifted in midair, and he drew one stroke, right across the white sun and the golden-robed Dai Qian, even as the 2 arms from his statue of the god of berserkers was charging over. This one stroke looked as if it had gathered the world of berserkers kismet and contained the laws within the world, as well as Su Ming's oath to turn it into a glorious scene as magnificent as the world being created. It was like someone had lifted an old dust-colored curtain to reveal the prideful sun rising into the sky behind it. It represented the world being turned back in time, and also represented the possibility of the berserkers rising in hope and glory once more. At the same time Su Ming drew this stroke, A loud, deafening bang rang into the air. This came from the arms of the statue. With the time contained in the right and lightning in the left, these two arms collided with the white sun with a bang, causing a shocking bang to erupt into the sky. Su Ming's berserker obliteration seemed to have changed the law within the world of berserkers during that instant. If the world of berserkers had a spirit, then the change in that law would mean that the spirit would remember Su Ming's, as the god of berserkers, oath, especially the last line. I will dye the immortal sky red with millions of their lives throughout my life. It was precisely this god of berserkers' oath that caused the golden-robed Di Qian's white sun to start crumbling swiftly from the middle at the instant Su Ming drew that stroke across it. The sun eventually exploded completely, turning into a wave of impact that swept through the area in the sky. Wherever it went, the space would crack, and it would also cause the earth to collapse. The immortals on the ground looked at this scene in the sky in shock, and a chill slowly crept up their spines. If this destruction had started on the ground, then perhaps none of them would be standing anymore. As that white sun that contained the golden-robed Di Qian's life shattered, his body showed up. He staggered backwards and coughed up a mouthful of blood. The crown on his head crumbled into pieces and disappeared. His emperor's robe was also torn apart before it exploded. The golden-robed Di Qian fell back once again, looking incredibly pathetic with his pale face. His gaze was unfocused and had lost its previous brilliant shine, but the grudge in his eyes was now much stronger than before. At that moment, his grudge fused together with his broken smile. He looked at Su Ming, and he knew that from this moment onwards, perhaps Su Ming was truly completely out of his control. But it did not mean that he no longer had a chance. Compared to Di Qian's current pathetic state, Su Ming remained as calm as ever, even though his face was slightly pale. However, the 7 colors of the rainbow were shining on his body. That light seemed to be spreading out from his body and reflecting off the sky while fusing with the ground. At that instant, a feeling that they did not know whether what was happening was their figment of imagination filled up all the hearts of those who were watching Su Ming. And that was, Su Ming had fused together perfectly with the world due to an opportunity. He was the sky, the earth, and the whole world of berserkers. This perfect fusion caused all the people to feel as if they were facing the world when they looked at Su Ming. It was impossible to describe this feeling with words, but it was incredibly strong within each and every single person's hearts, yet none of them were able to give it words. Fusion with the world. Jian sucked in a breath and mumbled to himself. He could tell with just one glance that Su Ming's power had already surpassed the first step and was in the process of moving through the second step. He was going through the fusion with the world, and once he completed it, his power would increase by leaps and bounds. He might have gathered the world of berserkers' kismet on himself, but it was just that. He had only gathered it, but had not fused with it. What happened previously was that the kismet used the child's body as a carrier to explode, and now he had fused with it. This fusion means that it is no longer something as simple as the kismet gathering on him and using him as a carrier. He has taken control of it. If this person falls, the berserkers will fall. If this person rises to glory, the berserkers will also rise to glory. This is the sign of the god of berserkers. As I expected, he's really the 4th god of berserkers. The world of berserkers' kismet only reacted this way because it has acknowledged his oath as the god of berserkers. Jian stared at Su Ming, and a deep wave of killing intent rose in his heart. He was acknowledged by the world of berserkers. Destiny. Just as expected of destiny. At the instant killing intent ran rampant in Jian's heart, Su Ming sucked in a deep breath. He lowered his head and looked towards Di Qian, swiftly taking a step forward. The world's kismet is upon me, and I will surely kill Di Qian with my own hands. This was his oath as the god of berserkers, and it meant that he had to fulfill this oath. At that moment, the golden-robed Di Qian was in an incredibly weakened state. The burning of his life had dealt a heavy blow to him, and the shattering of his art had caused him to suffer a huge backlash. He was no longer Su Ming's opponent. Di Qian did not choose to dodge when Su Ming charged towards him. A strange light started shining in his eyes, and at the instant he looked as if he had made some sort of decision. Jian, who had been watching from afar and had not chosen to truly attack since the start, lifted his foot swiftly and stomped the air before him. With it, the world roared, and a powerful wave spread out swiftly, like the gusts of violent wind, from around Ji, and that's enough. Ji and let out a cold harumph. As he lifted his right hand, he opened the fan in his hand swiftly, and a layer of black fog moved with a bang from within it to turn into 9 black dragons, which then charged toward Su Ming. Su Ming had long since expected Jian's attack. He might be from evil sect, but he was, in the end, an immortal. Due to his position, there was no way he would just stand by and watch Di Qian's clones die one after another. Almost at the instant Jian activated his divine ability, ripples showed up around Su Ming. As they shone, they turned black, surrounding him layer by layer and preventing him from moving forward. Soon after, Jian took a step forward and appeared right before Su Ming. With a wave of his arm, a force that surpassed the golden-robed Di Qian's power charged towards Su Ming with a bang. From several directions behind him, the 9 black dragons roared and closed in on him as well. Su Ming remained as calm as ever. Right from the moment he stepped out and fought against Di Qian, he had already known that this battle would be exceedingly difficult. Not only would he have to fight against Di Qian's clones, if he caused too much commotion, this Jian would also attack. In fact, even though the sky was distorting and crumbling, the 2 gigantic vortexes were still there, not having dissipated. They had only become slightly duller, as if they had been hidden away. However, they were still around, and this meant that during the final moments of this battle, new immortals would descend to this world, and Di Qian's real self would definitely not just sit back and watch his clones die. His real self might not be able to come to this place personally, but he would definitely think of something and send stronger people to this place. Su Ming could not stop any of this. There was only one path that lay before his eyes, and that was to fight. He would fight till the world turned dark. He would fight till the sun and moon no longer shone. He would fight till a sea of blood surged into the sky. He would fight until he killed millions upon millions of immortals. Besides, Su Ming knew that his statue of the god of berserkers only had 2 arms at the moment, and there was a powerful urge within his body telling him that he could become stronger. However, even though this feeling of becoming stronger was incredibly great, it was still not enough for an outburst. It was as if his blood had not reached its boiling point just yet. If he wanted to make himself stronger, bring out more of his statute, then he would need a full outburst. Then, in the midst of all these explosions, of understanding his own power, and all the battles and dangers, he would latch onto his own potential so that this feeling of becoming stronger would become reality. Su Ming had not completely understood all of these things previously, but once he lost against the golden-robed Di Qian during their first exchange of blows, once he was overcome by madness due to his hate and made his decision to kill Di Qian, he clearly sensed that he could reach the middle stage of the Berserker Soul Realm. That was why he reached the middle stage of that realm. Right then, what he needed was to sense the signs that told him he could reach the later stage of the Berserker Soul Realm. Among these endless battles, he could make himself become a berserker in the later stage of the Berserker Soul Realm. He could even attain great completion in the Berserker Soul Realm, and even life cultivation. All those that block my path have the same sin as Di Qian. Su Ming's blood was burning in his body. As his voice traveled outwards, he swiftly lifted his right hand and seized the air in the direction of the ground. The powerful enchanted treasures that had been activated between evil sect and all the immortal sects on the ground no longer moved, since both sides were no longer fighting. But they were not taken back either that moment. The blood Kirin within evil sect standing among the tens of thousands of immortals on the ground had become Su Ming's target. The blood Kirin had spread out and covered the evil lust sect disciples as if it was protecting them. Yet now, as Su Ming seized the air with his right hand, that creature started trembling, and it even lifted its head to let out a shrill roar. The next scene after shocked the evil sect disciples to the heart. The blood Kirin only let out one more roar before flying up against its will. This creature might be evil lust sect's treasure and was formed by the blood of the evil lust sect disciples, but since it appeared in the land of berserkers, then there was even more aura of death compared to blood in its body. That aura of death was naturally born in the land of berserkers. It was one of its kismet and laws. At that moment, if Su Ming wanted to use this Kirin, then this beast could naturally not go against him. Almost in an instant, the blood Kirin flew into midair, but before it could get any closer, Su Ming formed a seal with his hand and pointed at it. The blood Kirin let out a shrill scream of pain and its body crumbled with a bang. As it did so, a large amount of aura of death spilled out. It was also at this moment that the 9 black dragons behind Su Ming closed in on him. Jian also appeared right before him, but Su Ming's expression remained calm. During the instant the blood Kirin crumbled, he lifted his left hand and formed a seal. The blood Kirin's collapse caused a large amount of aura of death to spread out, and during that instant, that aura of death formed a gigantic seal in midair. It was the verdant abyssal seal. Shatter, Su Ming said softly. The verdant abyssal seal swiftly exploded, causing the sky to tremble. In the midst of the distortions, an endless amount of aura of death spilled out and descended from the sky above Su Ming to charge towards him. Then, with Su Ming acting as its center, it swept outwards. Su Ming stood in the middle of it all with his hair flying and his robes dancing. His eyes were turning red with killing intent. Whoever blocked his path, he would kill. Chapter 669. Devour the Sky. The instant the verdant abyssal seal formed by the blood Kirin crumbled, it turned into a huge wave of impact that instantly crashed into the waves that limited Su Ming's movements. A loud bang came from the crash, and Su Ming's body was freed. At the same moment, the aura of death from the sky descended and enveloped the 9 black dragons behind Su Ming. Yet Jian only paused for a moment before he faced that aura of death head-on and charged toward Su Ming. He lifted his left hand and struck him through the air. It looked like a simple strike, but once he delivered it, dozens of illusions that belonged to dozens of strange, ferocious beasts manifested before Jian. They appeared within an instant, then disappeared within the next, and his palm had already closed in. At the instant his left hand crashed into Su Ming's right fist through the air. An even louder bang shook the sky and earth as it reverberated in the air. Blood trickled out of Su Ming's lips and he fell back almost 1,000 feet. As for Jian, his body swayed a little, but he did not retreat. However, the color of his face did change several times in succession. Clearly, Su Ming's punch and the impact from the aura of death had also had quite the impact on him. Su Ming wiped away the blood at the corners of his mouth. A great fighting spirit shone in his eyes, and his blood was boiling. He could feel it. The greater the pressure from Jian brought with it, the signs of him being able to break through the middle stage of the Berserker Soul stage becoming greater. If you want to fight, then we fight. Su Ming swiftly rose into the sky, and with a swing of his arm, his statue of the god of Berserker's arms appeared once again beside him. They then charged towards Jian once more. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. As a thought appeared in his head, an illusion manifested behind him. That illusion was his nascent divinity. It appeared with an incredibly dense presence, and at the same time it exuded waves of pressure from its body. It brought out a loud commotion among the immortals underneath the instant they saw Su Ming's nascent divinity. Even Jian was momentarily taken aback by the sight. Nascent divinities were something unique to high-level immortals. It was impossible for these things to exist in berserkers. Nascent divinity. That is a nascent divinity. That person is a berserker, but he managed to create a nascent divinity. Could he be practicing both the ways of the berserkers and the immortals' cultivation? Someone researched this many years ago, but in the end, they discovered that both systems couldn't exist at the same time in one body. Yet he actually managed to do it. Amid those loud voices, the arms of Su Ming's statue charged towards Jian. The power contained within them was something that even Jian did not dare underestimate. At that moment, he did not have any time to think about anything else. He swung the fan in his hand, and black fog immediately rose around him, turning into black armor on his body. Su Ming closed his eyes once his nascent divinity appeared. He then lifted his right hand and formed a seal. Once he transformed it 9 times, he executed Hong Luo's 9 transfigurations and implemented it within the divine ability he was about to cast, then pointed towards his right leg. Right after, he lifted his head and took a step forward. At the instant his foot landed, the entire world looked as if it was shaking, and right before everyone's eyes, a huge foot manifested in the sky above Jian. This was the god of Berserker's 7 steps. Su Ming took 7 steps in succession. Once the first foot appeared in the sky, 6 others followed, each of whom had the presence stronger than that of the one that came before it. Once these 7 feet fused together and turned into one, it came crashing down. The world roared, and Xian's pupils shrank. He let out a low growl, and the black armor on his body spread out. At the same time, an illusion immediately manifested behind him, looking extremely bizarre. The creature had 2 horns on its head, but was in the shape of a human, yet not. It looked like a monster from beyond the world, and it was 10,000 feet tall. That illusion lifted its head and let out a piercing roar, then charged towards Su Ming's god of Berserker's 7 steps. Even in the midst of those roars, Su Ming still had his eyes closed and did look toward the results of the battle. Instead, he continued stimulating his own mind, causing the signs of him being able to break through the middle stage of the Berserker soul realm to become stronger. After executing 9 transfigurations, Su Ming lifted his left hand. He did not form a seal, but instead chose to lock his left hand with his right. He then formed 10 different signs. The area around him turned indistinct, and that indistinct state would grow stronger with each sign he made. When Su Ming formed the 9th one, the indistinct, hazy area turned into an illusion, and his body could no longer be seen clearly. This was the art Hong Luo had obtained by chance numerous years ago, but due to the nobility of his bloodline and his confidence towards the royal blood's divine abilities, he had regarded it with scorn and never bothered to practice it. The 9 transfigurations, 10 transformations, 1 voice art. This art could take the form of everything in the world, as long as there was a connection between the caster and the thing they wanted to create. Like Su Ming at that moment. Once he executed the 9 transformations from the 10, he found that he could not form the final one. That was why he chose to give up on continuing. Instead, he fused his mind with his snake. During that instant, right when the immortals below calmed down, the indistinct area around Su Ming's body increased exponentially, to 100, 1,000, 5,000, and up to 10,000 feet. Due to the indistinct area, no one was able to see Su Ming anymore, but the appearance of such a scene in the world was still enough to cause all those who saw it to feel their hearts trembling in shock. At the same time, they also felt their hearts racing against their will, as if they were being controlled. In fact, all the tens of thousands of people's hearts were forced to beat at the same high rate. Because of that, the pressure that was formed was enough to make all those people feel overwhelmingly shocked. Ba-dump, ba-dump. The sounds of the heartbeats caused all those who heard them to feel as if they were listening to their own heartbeats. However, if they listened carefully, they would find, with pale, ashen faces, that those heartbeats came from the indistinct illusion in the sky. It was as if there was a heart within that illusion, and everyone's hearts had to follow its heartbeat. If they did not obey, then their hearts would explode because they did not harmonize with the world. Even Xian was shocked by it. At the instant the arms of Su Ming's statue of the god of Berserkers locked with each other, he cast a sideways glance towards it. The moment he looked over, a shocking roar came from that indistinct illusion. That roar did not seem like it belonged to a person but a ferocious beast that could destroy the world. All the people's hearts started beating even faster. As more roars reverberated through the air, the indistinct illusion swiftly broke and turned into an endless amount of crystalline lights that tumbled backwards. During that instant, a gigantic beast of 10,000 feet swiftly shot out. The beast's appearance stirred up a commotion that surpassed all the previous ones. It also immediately caused the tens of thousands of immortals instinctively retreat, causing the land to be in a state of chaos. In the midst of that chaos, Xian's pupils shrank. Disbelief could be seen entering his eyes. Candle dragon. That's a candle dragon. Just how did Su Ming manage to do it? How could he obtain a candle dragon as his pet? That's not a pet. That's Su Ming himself. He transformed into a candle dragon. Could it be that he's actually a candle dragon that transformed into a human? In the midst of those voices, Su Ming's face appeared right above the head of that candle dragon in the sky. He had his eyes closed and was not moving. The giant snake's body moved in the sky, and when the candle dragon lifted its head, it let out a roar. That voice was filled with a power that could capture souls, and it made all the people who heard it feel their hearts and minds entering a daze. In an instant, illusions rose within their minds, and they could not control themselves. At the same time, the candle dragon charged towards Xian. At the instant it closed in, it opened its eyes, and once the dragon did so, Su Ming, too, opened his eyes. The power to capture souls that was a countless amount of times stronger than before erupted forth. This was the Candle Dragon's true power for soul catching. At that instant, the world lost its color because of that power, and everything looked as if it had turned into emptiness. The Candle Dragon's eyes were the only source of dark light remaining in the world. Even someone as powerful as Xian could not help but enter a daze. This absent-mindedness might have only lasted for several breaths, but when his mind became clear, the arms of the statue of the god of berserkers were already very close to him. But this was not the main point. What mattered was that the Candle Dragon's body was no longer before him, but was behind him, and it was charging straight towards the dazed and incredibly pathetic-looking golden-robed Xian. Xian's pupils shrank. Without any hesitation, he lifted his right hand and struck his body. He could not let any more of Xian's clones die. At the very least, they could not die in Su Ming's hands. With his power, he had long since been able to see that something was off about Su Ming. There was an incredibly powerful determination within him, and that determination was focused on killing Xian. With each clone he killed, the determination would be stimulated, allowing Su Ming to absorb more power from the world and causing his cultivation base to increase explosively because of it. Xian knew clearly that if the golden-robed Xian was killed by Su Ming, then Su Ming might immediately have the thought to reach the later stage of the Berserker Soul Realm. In fact, there was even a possibility that he would arrive at the later stage of the Berserker Soul Realm with just one step. At that moment, when Xian struck his body with his right hand, his body immediately started distorting, as if he was about to split up. Overlapping shadows immediately manifested behind him, as if they were about to form another clone. However, right at the instant this clone was about to appear, Su Ming, who had turned into the Candle Dragon, turned his head around and let out a loud roar at Xian. This roar was the Candle Dragon's roar, and it was also Su Ming's. God of Berserker's roar. That roar also contained Su Ming's understanding towards the 9 transfigurations, 10 transformations, 1 voice. That one voice was like an order that caused the world to lose its color. The booming roar caused Xian's body to freeze, and at the same time, an eyeball also flew out from Su Ming's body. That eyeball swelled up in midair, and within it was a sealing power that belonged to hidden execution of justice. The roar, seal, soul capture, arms from the statue of the god of berserkers, and the god of berserkers' steps had all been executed by Su Ming for one reason alone: to trap Xian. At that moment, he succeeded. At the instant Xian was trapped, the Candle Dragon that was Su Ming brought with him madness, killing intent, and hatred when it opened its mouth wide in the direction of the dazed Xian. Then, he sucked in a deep breath. The world became dark, and Xian died. Chapter 670. The Person in the Coffin. At that instant, the world lost all light, and darkness replaced everything. When light reappeared and darkness gradually disappeared, the tens of thousands of cultivators who had retreated far away saw that there was no longer any Candle Dragon in the world, and neither was the golden-robed Xian anywhere to be found. The only thing remaining in midair was Su Ming, who looked exhausted, but whose eyes were shining with a brilliant light. The 10 transformations art might be powerful, and Su Ming might be able to last in that form even longer. But the small snake could not withstand the chance after it had fused with Su Ming's will. That was why once he devoured Xian, Su Ming gave up on remaining in the form he had gained after casting the 10 transformations art. He stood in midair, and at the instant the area around him sank into dead silence, he lifted his head and let out a roar that had been suppressed for a countless amount of years. All those years ago, Xian's first clone, whose existence had been like the might of heaven itself, had died. The powerful purple-robed clone who had pushed Su Ming to death's door on the Dead Sea had been destroyed. The strongest among the 3 clones, the golden-robed Xian, had burned his own life to bring forth the soar to the white sky that was greater than that of the previous 2 clones, and he was still devoured. The mountains that had pressed down on Su Ming's body over the years crumbled at that moment, and a feeling of freedom instantly rose within his heart. But he knew that the ordeal had yet to end. Xian had 4 clones. There was one more remaining. His roars sounded like he was venting. All his depression and hate towards Xian erupted forth. At that moment, his roars reverberated in all directions, and when they fell into the immortals' ears in the area, their hearts trembled. Xian's expression was incredibly dark. He had watched Su Ming devour the golden-robed Xian right in front of his face, but he had been unable to do anything to stop him. Right then, Su Ming's qi was also rising endlessly right before his eyes, and as it did, even more powerful waves of power erupted from his body. Su Ming could sense it. The signs telling him that he could break through the middle stage of the Berserker Soul Realm had become incredibly strong. He could clearly feel the existence of the cracks in his power signaling his breakthrough, and he could sense the later stage of the Berserker Soul Realm lying right behind a single thought. He lowered his head, and his gaze fell on the ground, right on the erect coffin that was void of the presence of any cultivators around it. Almost at the moment Su Ming looked towards the coffin, a muffled boom immediately traveled out from within it, as if there was a fist striking the lid from inside, causing some cracks to appear on it. Bang! 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 This sound continued ringing, and the cracks on the lid increased with each passing moment. At the same time, a wave of power that surpassed the golden-robed Di Qian's and could even compare with Jian's magical body gradually spread out from that coffin. Judging by Di Qian's expression and his words previously, he originally only had 3 clones, and the 4th one was created in the land of Berserkers. A complicated look appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He remembered the location where the coffin was and recalled the near 100 shaman warrior souls that belonged to his eldest senior brother appearing from Sky Mist Dao. He could also sense a hint of familiarity from the presence spreading out from the person in the coffin. That hint of familiarity caused Su Ming's heart to tremble, and it made the excitement he felt when he had killed Di Qian's clones instantly vanish. Is it you? Su Ming closed his eyes. The shivers in his heart turned into sadness and the most extreme form of pain. There was no way he could forget this familiar feeling. This familiarity came from the 9th summit. As if he had noticed the fluctuations in Su Ming's emotions, Jian no longer fought against the hidden execution of justice. Instead, he narrowed his eyes, and once he cast a glance at Su Ming, his gaze fell swiftly on the coffin on the ground. A dark light appeared in his eyes. He knew clearly that Di Qian had only sent 3 clones to this place. That was why this 4th clone had to be quite interesting. Controlling him through worlds using your will. Di Qian, oh Di Qian, you have really spent a lot of effort so that you could control destiny. If this clone dies as well, then even you might have to suffer a grievous injury. By destiny's expression. He might know this clone personally. Interesting. Very interesting. A faint smile appeared at the corners of Jian's lips, and it grew wider with each passing moment. An increasing amount of cultivators in the area saw Su Ming's abnormal expression at that moment. The silence and grief about him could not be hidden away. There was also an increasing amount of people who saw the complicated look in Su Ming's eyes as he looked at the coffin. The person in the coffin is. It belongs to Great Leaf Immortal Sect. Could it be related to Lord Di Qian? Low-voiced discussions slowly spread out in the silent world. Su Ming's abnormal behavior had caused most of the people to gather their gazes on the coffin. Bang! 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 The muffled thuds from the coffin continued without stop. The cracks on its lid spread out even more. With each bang, a large amount of shards would spill everywhere. The cracks spread out, and as they intersected with each other, a fist shot through the coffin's lid with a bang and appeared right before everyone's eyes. They could tell that this was a man's fist. Once it shot through the coffin, it slowly retreated back. When the banging sounds appeared once again, the coffin started shaking viciously. This time, 2 fists shot through the lid. The sorrow on Su Ming's face grew even stronger. He stared at the fists in the coffin with a blank expression, and the sense of familiarity grew even stronger within him, so much so that it made his heart hurt even more. A muffled bang instantly shot out at that moment. With it, the coffin's lid shattered, and a large amount of fog spilled out from inside. A powerful wave of power swiftly spread out into all directions. As it did so, a murderous aura shot up into the sky and surged through the universe. With the coffin as its center, a gigantic vortex swept through the area. A tall person gradually walked out from within the vortex. His body was hidden within the fog and his face could not be seen clearly, but the instant Su Ming saw his silhouette, even though he had already formed a guess in his heart, he still felt as if a mountain had crashed on his body. He staggered a few steps back, and his eyes turned bloodshot. His face filled with grief, and he looked as if he was about to descend into madness. At that moment, his hatred towards Di Qian became even stronger than before, so much so that it already surpassed the level where he could not bear to be under the same sky as Di Qian. He stared at the person gradually walking out of the fog, his figure slowly becoming clearer, and he cried. Su Ming rarely cried. In fact, it could even be said that besides weeping silently in the unfamiliar south morning after he left Dark Mountain, he had never cried. Because his elder had once told him that boys could bleed but could not cry. These were words his elder had told him kindly when he was still very young. And he always remembered them. Yet on this day, when he saw this person, Su Ming cried. However, those tears were only in his heart. They did not fall on his face, so no one could see him crying. Eldest senior brother. Su Ming stared at the clear figure, and everything in his world disappeared. The only thing that remained was the tall, big figure standing on the ground and lifting his head to look at him. He was half naked, revealing his powerful torso to the world. There was an incredibly complicated runic symbol on his body, covering most of his exposed skin. The color of his skin was purple. There were a large amount of scars on his body. They might have already closed up, but there were many of those that ran through his entire body, and Su Ming could tell that even if they had closed up, they had just been inflicted on him recently. They did not seem to have been left on him a long time ago. At the instant Su Ming saw the scars, he seemed to have seen his eldest senior brother searching for his master and his junior brothers, again and again, in eastern wastelands. He saw the madness and desperation within him as he searched for his family from the 9th summit. His eldest senior brother stood on the sand with bare feet. His back was straight. He was not bending his back in the slightest, making it seem as if it represented his will. He no longer had any hair. He was bald, and there were 9 steel needles in his skull. His face was no longer as it was in Su Ming's memories. There was now an ancient air to his face, along with a cross-shaped scar. That scar went through the center of the eldest senior brother's brows and his ears. Su Ming could clearly tell that this was not a scar he sustained in battle. This was inflicted on him by someone carving it on him bit by bit. Then, so that it would not recover, that person had used some unknown method to make purple smoke fill that scar, which in return fused together with the runic symbol on the eldest senior brother's body. It caused Su Ming's eldest senior brother to no longer be the gentle person from his memories. There was a large hook attached to his right arm, because his right hand was already gone. That hook was now his hand. His left arm was still there, but there were popped veins on it, and they were squirming about, as if there were some foreign objects in his body. Su Ming looked at his eldest senior brother. Then, in the midst of his grief and sadness, he let out a shrill roar that shook the sky and earth. Blood slowly trickled out of his eyes. He could not cry tears, but he could have blood flow out in place of tears. Su Ming knew that his eldest senior brother was not a very expressive and eloquent person. He was even a little slow. He always showed his concern in an unseen manner and did not ask for anything in return. That was why, even though others might not be able to detect it or feel it deeply within them, his concern was always around. When Su Ming had just arrived to the 9th summit and had cleared his mind for the first time, Xianxia had arrived at that moment. Even though his second senior brother had been the one who attacked, his eldest senior brother's gaze had gathered on Xianxia. He would not allow any outsider to hurt his junior brother. Only when second senior brother attacked did he avert his gaze. During the battle against Phantom Deus tribe, the entire 9th summit had traveled out together. Eldest senior brother had been worried and sent one of his shaman souls to go with them. He had even given that person the order to protect his junior brothers even if he had to die in the process. The 9th summit was Su Ming's home, and his eldest senior brother was his older brother. Eldest senior brother. Su Ming shuddered, and a crazed wave of emotions erupted from his body. Fourth, you just came to the mountain. It's a pity that I can't come out of isolation just yet. I can only do so after a few years. How about this? I'll give this to you, use it to protect yourself. That was the first time Su Ming had seen his eldest senior brother with his own eyes. His gentle gaze and kindly words were things that he would never forget. Youngest junior brother, your journey to the land of the shamans will be perilous. I'll give you a slave of mine. Her name is Fa Zong. These were his eldest senior brother's words before Su Ming left the 9th summit to the battlefield between the berserkers and shamans. and there was no way Su Ming could ever forget the concern in his voice.